I mean, it's one of our three core capacities. So we look at discipline, compassion, and courage, because without them, there is no possibility of growth.
Hi everyone and welcome. I'm Alden and I'm really excited to be here today with Warren Munitz, founder of Integrative Coaching. If you've ever felt stuck, overwhelmed, or like you're holding yourself back in some way, this conversation is for you. Today we're diving deep into real practical topics around personal development, mindset, and emotional mastery that can create real transformation. We'll be asking Warren some powerful questions, so grab a notebook or just settle in and soak it up. Let's begin. What does real transformation actually look like in a person's life? Not just external success, but those internal shifts that change how someone sees the world. Like, Warren, what stands out for you?
Would you mind asking that question again? I was just thinking about reminding everyone just to click like and subscribe to the channel. And I just repeat the question for me.
No problem at all. So here we go. So what does real transformation actually look like in a person's life?
It is not a fast process. Transformation in the beginning can look like a lot of things. It can even look like breakdown. And so because it's a big process, transformation in the beginning requires courage in looking at ourselves and checking what is it that we need to let go of? What is it that we are hiding from? What is it that we're avoiding? So depending on what stage of the phase or what phase of the journey of transformation you're in, it can look quite different. So in the beginning, it can look like a breakdown. Or things shifting a lot. In the middle, when there's a lot of inner work happening, it can look like nothing is changing. And so it's sometimes useful to have someone reflect to you that it depends on what stage, what season you are in that journey of transformation. At the end, the truth is there is no end to transformation. You just keep evolving. Today's hurdle is tomorrow's history, and then you're now looking at what is the next challenge or what is the next shift. It could also look like contentment. So it's different for what stage of the journey you're in.
Picking up on that point, is it true to say the more you sort of become comfortable with transformation, perhaps the process of transformation could start to speed up as you identify parts of your life that need improvement or transforming?
It's relative. So speeding up in the beginning can seem very slow in the middle, and very slow in the middle or very fast in the middle can seem like very slow nearer the end of the journey. So things can change relative to what you're used to. So that's what you should be looking for. If you're wondering, are things actually changing? I'm doing the work, I'm diving in, I'm practicing, I'm journaling, I have a coach. You might be in a stage where it's a lot of internal work, and the shift outside will only happen once that stage has been broken through, once it's been integrated completely. So yes, it can look like it's speeding up sometimes, but not all the time.
How can someone start to change a negative internal dialogue? Let's talk about small practical ways to interrupt that critical voice that most of us live with.
Sure. That's such a big one. And for most people, that inner voice sounds like your voice. It sounds like you. And you think you're listening to yourself. And that couldn't be further from the truth. So the inner voice is what is known as the superego. It's what we learn through osmosis. in the beginning of our early childhood, we absorb our parental figures, authorities around us, and we start to almost learn how to fit in to what's happening. And so that becomes either the policeman or the inner critic, the inner voice. And over time, you start to almost identify sometimes with that voice or recognize it as a part of you. Really, it's just a function that you learned and that you can disidentify from, and you can stop believing, stop trusting. Why do I say stop trusting? Because when it comes to that inner voice, it's useful up to a certain age. So it's useful in childhood for children to understand what are the rules, what are the boundaries, what I should remember, what I should do. And then at a certain point of our maturity, we have to reclaim the sovereignty of our being, and we have to reclaim our power. And so that inner voice, it's very difficult to let it go because it was a place of safety. Even if it might feel like it's hurting you, it was a place of safety. And so learning to identify it is actually a very good practice. Learning to recognize that it's not true. It might be true sometimes, just like a clock is true, even a broken clock. What is it? Twice a day. But it's up to you now as an individual, as a whole human, as an adult, to start to investigate for yourself without relying on that inner critic to determine what's true or not. So sometimes it'll come to reinforce a belief, something like that. Might be a good idea to question, to investigate for yourself. Is this actually true? And be as objective as possible. And if you can't be, reach out for help, ask someone else, preferably a professional.
Why do so many high performers struggle with stillness or presence? You know, Warren, you've worked with so many leaders. So what patterns do you see and how can they shift this?
Again, one more time.
Why do so many high performers struggle with stillness or presence?
Okay. So if we look at high performers and we look at a certain quality of their personality, you might find, and I would probably lean into betting, you would probably always find that there is a doer that is engaging all the time. And that sometimes is a pattern. And for a period of time, it might have gotten them some success, whether that be from approval or some type of recognition. That over time becomes tiring. So we're seeking this approval and we become very good at it and we start to get it. And maybe that is expressed as external success. But what is the opposite of doing then would be stillness, which would be relaxation, which would be allowing you to have a holiday without thinking about work, allowing you to switch off and disengage from the activity of work. And then I have some clients that might go through retirement and then they start working on another project, or they take a holiday and they end up working on the holiday on new projects that they want to do that are interesting. And while that is okay and that's great, the problem is, when do you get to really disconnect? And if you don't know how to do that, especially if your personality is driving you to do that and you think by not doing that you're not going to be successful, then for most people it's a no-brainer. You're never going to switch off. So it's important to recognize that that's actually a personality pattern And it's not a formula for ultimate success. And there are levels to that. So if you reach a certain level of success and now you maybe are experiencing a glass ceiling, it's more than likely that you are operating from that pattern, and it's time to shift and adjust, start to see a different perspective, start to get that 30,000 foot perspective, and start to orchestrate things differently, whether it be delegating or putting in systems that allow you to let go and to really start enjoying the success that you have achieved.
So following on from that, many people think pushing harder leads to results. But what happens when we bring kindness instead? So what I'm trying to ask is, what role does self-compassion play in lasting change?
I mean, it's one of our 3 core capacities. So we look at discipline, compassion, and courage, because without them, there is no possibility of growth. But if we talk about self-compassion, if you are struggling with the inner critic, unless you have compassion, you won't be able to let go of the inner critic, because you will experience the idea of letting go of the inner critic as failure, and you won't be able to explore what that really is. You see, because it's your idea of failure, the judgment, that limits your understanding of what it actually is hiding from you internally. With compassion, you allow yourself to experience what the idea of failure is, which leads you into the unconscious. It leads you deeper into the experience of the shadow, where you more than likely have suppressed failure. Now, the failure you've suppressed is an aspect of your psyche. It's not reality. It's an aspect of your psyche. It's not external. Doesn't mean anything, actually. You've just made it mean something. So by allowing yourself to have that self-compassion, number one, things start to shift for you internally. But also what happens is you're able to actually have compassion for others. Because before you have compassion for yourself, it's not actually possible to have compassion for others.
If you're enjoying this conversation and finding the insights helpful, we'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps more people to discover these tools, and it supports us in continuing to share powerful content like this. And if you know someone who could benefit from today's topic, feel free to share it with them too.
Warren, excellent, thank you.
Warren, how do limiting beliefs quietly sabotage our biggest goals?
Yeah, you see, the thing with limiting beliefs is that they're unconscious. And so when something's unconscious, it literally means you are not aware of it. And the challenge is that most people are not aware of what their limiting beliefs are, but they might start to recognize a pattern of outcomes that they're getting and not know why do they keep getting these same outcomes. And so we need to really dig into the unconscious. We need to understand what is operating, what is working in our unconscious to create our perspective of reality, which influences the decisions we make. Now, if we're not aware of that unconscious pattern, the belief, the feeling, what happens is we always choose a specific direction, even if you have chosen that direction before and it doesn't lead where you want to get to. And why? Is because unconsciously, the opposite choice, it's not an option for you. And so when you start to investigate what's happening in the unconscious, and an easy way to do that is to become aware. How do you feel in this moment? What's happening for you in this moment? not the busyness that's happening in the mind. What is happening for you in this moment underneath that busyness? You'll start to sense an experience that's happening somatically in your body. If you can't, then just sit with the unconscious thoughts or the inner critic, because that's the next level. That's the above, that's the more superficial level. Ultimately, you want to get into what's happening in the body, because that's the deeper unconscious that is directing your life while you are thinking it's you that's directing. So the challenge is, because it's unconscious, it's very difficult to get to initially, especially without a mirror, without a coach, without a therapist, without a really good journaling practice or a meditation practice. And then, because these are beliefs that have more than likely grown over decades of your life, you probably will be quite challenged to identify them, because to you, you'll think they're the ground that you're standing on. And why would you question that? It's kind of like a matrix moment, the red or the blue pill. You are now at a point where you have to question everything. There's a saying, in the beginning, mountains are mountains and trees are trees. In the middle of the journey, when you take the red pill, mountains aren't mountains and trees aren't trees. In the end, mountains are mountains again and trees are trees. The idea here is that you need to question literally everything. Everything you think you know is in the conscious mind. That's not what we need to investigate. You need to question whether you know that that's true or not. And if you don't, if it's an inherited belief, for example, can you go find out for yourself? Or can you let that be an open question and see what that does to your experience of being in the moment without having certainty of what that is or what that used to be?
Well, you already answered my next question, which you headed it off. But what I was just, again, bringing the point forward that, for someone just starting out, how can they begin noticing their thoughts without judgment? So it was really, what does it mean to become the observer of your own mind?
Well, let's stick with that first question.
Okay.
How do you start noticing without judgment? You start noticing the judgments without judgment. It's quite challenging. In the beginning, it's like you start to notice yourself noticing yourself, noticing yourself, noticing, and you go into this loop and you're not sure who's noticing what. And so the more you practice, the clearer that process will become. So if you are sitting for meditation, maybe you're looking outside the window and you're just allowing your thoughts, a stream of thoughts, to pass. Don't chase them. Don't follow the thought. Don't answer the question. Just sit and watch that process happening, because that is a process that you've mistaken to be yourself. Allow yourself the space to witness that process without doing anything to it, without changing it, without answering it, without following it. Just sit, watch. Don't believe it, just watch it.
How does sitting with discomfort actually open up new choices and directions? So what I'm asking is, why is emotional regulation so important for personal growth?
If we look at the levels or the layers from superficial to very unconscious, we know the unconscious is directing your life. It's directing everyone's life. Without being aware of what's happening in the unconscious, we're only aware of what's happening superficially. It's almost like, that toy that I can't remember if you still get them. They're little steering wheels for kids. You put them in the back seat and they pretend they're driving, except you're driving and controlling the car. And every now and again, they might turn left and the car goes left. And that is a correlation, not a causation. And over time, our life can be like that, where we go, oh, sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. That might be because you think the part of you that you're controlling is not actually controlling your life. And by becoming aware of that unconscious, which is underneath the surface of the conscious. So let's say you sit with the beliefs for a bit. You sit with the ideas, the thoughts. And the less you follow them, the more uncomfortable you get, because the more uncertain of reality you become. And all of a sudden, that discomfort, that uncertainty has a feeling. Maybe it makes you angry. Maybe it makes you sad. Maybe it makes you scared. If you react to those emotions, you go back up a layer into the play steering wheel. But if you actually sit with the feeling, you look around you, you see, I'm still safe, nothing's happening. Nothing has triggered these emotions except you just not following the thoughts that would be used to mitigate these emotions. So actually these emotions have always been there and are still there. They're just not conscious. You're not aware of them. But by letting go the thoughts, you become aware of that discomfort. You become aware of those feelings. And when you become aware of those feelings without reacting to them, new choices of direction start to appear. Where you used to always go left, you now have an option to going straight or right, whereas before you didn't have that option. And the more you sit with that feeling, the more you are actually sitting into the unconscious, and you will start to become aware of other layers of thought, unconscious layers of thought and belief that are quite entrenched, will start to become conscious to you. And you'll start to question, but who am I? I thought I was this thought pattern before. Now, am I these beliefs or am I these emotions? And as you go deeper, the real power lies in not reacting to what's emerging. And in order to do that, you have to become comfortable with discomfort. Answer the question?
Yes.
Good.
Good. So, Warren, what's the difference between reacting and responding, and why does it matter?
I think the previous question would give you a sense of the difference. The one is there is an sense of autopilot that goes with reacting. You don't even know it's happening. It's kind of like maybe you've had the experience of driving your car, if you're lucky to have a car, and you get to your destination and you don't actually remember driving. Or you remember it, but you don't really remember much of that experience. That's because you were on autopilot and you were somewhere else in your head thinking about all other things. So your day-to-day life can also be like that. You get to work, you go into pattern, you know what to do at work, and you just go through your day, and you don't realize that you are on autopilot. And so you keep getting the same outcomes. There's no growth that way, or there's minimal growth that way. Whereas responding is being present in the moment, being with what's emerging from the unconscious, being aware of the unconscious as much as possible, and recognizing what is the reaction, the normal response that you would take, and seeing those other choices. That's the option that you have. You now have an option of how to respond. Like Viktor Frankl said, the gap between stimulus and response, that's the freedom of choice.
Warren, have we got time for one more question?
Great, let's do one more.
Okay. So, this is a big one for many. What mindset or or practice can help ease this tension. So how can people let go of needing control without feeling unsafe or exposed?
So the question I would ask you, if we were sitting in a coaching session, would be, what is it about that feeling that's a problem? What is it about feeling unsafe or exposed that's a problem? And you might go and say to me, well, the last time I felt this, this, and this, and this happened. And if we look at that pattern, you go, every time I felt this, this, and this, and this happened. And that might be true, but it also might be part of a bigger pattern where you don't have healthy boundaries around when to be open and vulnerable. And so what happens if you don't understand those boundaries? You become open and vulnerable at any time, with the wrong people even, in the wrong situations and in the wrong environment. So a process that I would invite you into is to start exploring that in a healthy container of coaching or therapy, where you're able to explore those feelings in a safe environment. And then all of a sudden you start to experience those feelings, and even though you feel like you're in danger or you feel that something could go wrong, the environment itself is holding you, and you realize that you're safe, that nothing has changed between now and when you ask the question, that feeling is here, and you go, are you safe? You can ask yourself, am I safe now in this environment? And I would do that with your coach or therapist until such time as you're actually aware of where healthy boundaries and unhealthy boundaries were, so that you can start to experience the unknown also feels unsafe. New also feels unsafe. Creativity also feels unsafe because it's new, it's in that realm. So growth can't happen if you're not comfortable with feeling unsafe in a healthy boundary, in a healthy environment, with healthy people.
Fascinating. So, thanks so much for joining us today. If anything Warren said resonated with you or got you thinking differently, go ahead and give this video a like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below. Warren reads them all. And if you're ready to take the next step in your own journey, you can find out more or book a discovery session by heading to integrativecoaching.co.za. Until next time, take care of yourselves, and thanks for spending your time with us.
See you next time.